Welcome to Diagnosing Dx, the podcast giving diagnostics the platform it deserves. While therapeutics and devices often take centre stage, diagnostics is the engine driving precision medicine. I'm your host, David Philby, and each week we spotlight the innovators, breakthroughs, and real-world challenges shaping the future of DX. In this episode of Diagnosing DX, I'm joined by Unika Alexander, co-founder and CEO of the Proficient Lab. The Proficient Lab builds software that helps diagnostic labs manage compliance, operations, and data across multiple sites, all in one platform. We unpack why staffing shortages, legacy systems, and inefficient compliance are putting labs under pressure, and how applied AI can reduce burnout while improving efficiency. If you're building or scaling a diagnostic lab, this episode is for you. Welcome, Unika, to the show this week. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. We're on the rush into the end of the year. Holidays next week. Is it a busy end to the year for you?
It is a busy end of the year. Everyone's trying to get things in. Everyone's prepping for the holidays and seeing what they could schedule for January, what they could get in. So it's busy, but good busy.
Yeah, it feels like that this end as well. I'm surprised. It felt like it was slowing down around Thanksgiving, and actually December has just been crazy busy. So, but bodes well for next year. I actually think there's quite a lot of optimism in the air at the moment. There's been quite a few sort of big announcements in the industry recently, which I think have left a sort of really positive taste for the end of the year, and hopefully that bodes well for 2026 in diagnostics.
Yep.
Let's get into it. So, firstly, I think we've got a really interesting topic today around what the Proficient Lab are doing and the challenges that you're trying to overcome. And obviously, it's a heavy AI platform as well. So, obviously, there's a lot of interest in where AI is going to play the best and most effective parts of the industry. But before we do that, it'd be great if you could introduce yourself and your career and what you've been doing up until this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of a software company called the Proficient Lab. In terms of my background, I've been in the laboratory space for the past 15 years. I am a laboratory scientist, licensed in states like New York, and I've just done a lot from working with startups, working with larger healthcare organizations. I've built labs. I've just done a lot in the regulatory and operations space. So that's where a lot of my background stems from. But outside of that, just being in the diagnostic space, part of the area that I've been very focused on for most of my career is the fertility space. So that's just been a really interesting border between, hardcore diagnostics and then IVF type spaces. So it's interesting to be part of both worlds.
Interesting. So you've been in and around the lab space for most of your career?
For all of my career,
Mm.
I am a lab geek. This is what I've done.
A lab geek turned CEO of a SaaS company, though.
Yes.
That's an interesting pivot. So, what's the current role? You mentioned that you're the CEO and co-founder of Proficient Lab.
Yes, I'm the CEO and co-founder of the Proficient Lab, and I think it's really important that we get a platform like this with a CEO that has a real hardcore interest and understanding of lab operations. And I think that's one of the things that really sets our foundation up for success is that we're not it's not a platform that's started by a whole bunch of IT people or physicians. It's really coming from like a laboratory backbone and foundation. So that's me, and that's a really interesting part of my career as I move from bench space into a CEO type space.
An interesting dynamic in itself, right?
Mhm.
Heavy lab ops and regulatory background. How did you end up becoming the CEO and founder of a digital platform, a software company in the space? Because did you want to be an entrepreneur? Was that something you've been motivated by or ambitious about throughout your career? Because it doesn't naturally sort of lean towards someone who's, been sort of in the lab, maybe sitting at the bench.
Yeah, I've always been, for lack of a better word, a leader. I've always been someone who wants to solve problems and who really wants to find, you know, a solution to make things easier. So being in the laboratory space, I found, that there were some frustrations that I faced constantly as I moved from organization to organization. And, at some point I said, you know what, we need some sort of change in the industry. And I felt like, this saying, if not me, whom, if not now, when? That was kind of my thought process. Like, there needs to be change. I understand what the problem is. I'm going to go down that road and be the one to help facilitate change.
Yeah, interesting. When you started the company, um, it's a big leap of faith, isn't it? It's a big jump. How did you sort of manage that initial? I'm sure you were in a stable job or at least a stable income before, and then you decide to become an entrepreneur. That's a
Yeah,
big jump.
it is a big jump, but it was a gradual jump. And I think part of it was really having people behind you that supported you and understood you. So, for instance, when I decided to make the jump, it wasn't like an immediate, I'm leaving the laboratory space. I'm becoming an entrepreneur. Like, it wasn't like one day after the other. I had like directors behind me who helped me, who really helped me showcase what I was building, helped me really put that MVP in the laboratory where I actually worked. So being able to, start the foundation of a company, but still be employed by the very individuals who were able to use and test the product was something that was very helpful in the early days so that I could still have an income, but still have people who could, who see the value in the platform. And that allowed me to scale while I still worked.
Mm. And you said, I think you said you have a co-founder. Is that
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
what's the difference in terms of yours and the co-founder's background?
Yeah, absolutely. So my co-founder is he's the CTO, and his background is in the government, like dealing with government and their IT issues. So you can't imagine that, the spaces around like the government-based IT is very much archaic. So he's the type of person who basically takes these archaic systems and brings them to the new space and new technology. So being able to see what doesn't work on a very high level and a granular level as well, and take that knowledge into a space like the laboratory, which does have systems that just don't quite work for the progress that we're making in the industry. That's his background, and I think the combination of my experience in the laboratory and his experience with systems that need change is something that just makes us like this amazing team working together on this.
Yeah, interesting. Did you know much about launching a software company before you did it? And always
No.
because yeah, I mean, like
No.
it's great that you've actually got the co-founder that sort of brings that background, but I mean, were you the idea and then you needed the software person, the technical person to sort of bring the actual, you know, development of it?
Yeah, so I was the idea. I was the person who understood the problem.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because every time, even to this day, when I bring a problem to my co-founder and I say we need to create a solution for this, he always thinks about it from a not how can this particular solution solve the problem today, but how can we build a solution to scale for problems that we're not seeing yet. So I was definitely and am definitely the subject matter expert. Obviously, I understand a lot more now than I did then. But back then, it was just me understanding that there is a problem, and he came in with the technical knowledge to help execute on solving that problem from a software standpoint.
Dream team, isn't it? When you basically have someone who is effectively a user who understands the day-to-day challenges, bottlenecks, shortfalls of existing systems, and then somebody who can bring an idea into a product and see the future of, well, yeah, I could create a product that fixes that now, but actually that then creates this problem and these future problems. And if we want to scale it, it's something completely different. And the
Exactly.
mergers of then, yeah, well, I think on that note, then, so who are the Proficient Lab? Like, give us that sort of high level overview of who you guys are.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a set of, well, laboratory enthusiasts because, I'm one of the subject matter experts, but we have individuals on our team who own their own consulting companies. We have individuals who come from the Columbia space where they deal with mental health. We really have individuals who understand the space, and not just from a laboratory perspective, but we've surrounded ourselves by individuals who also understand how to scale software, because it's all well and good to have, a platform that could, perform a specific function. But if you really don't understand the business aspects of it, then you're kind of stuck in the same place. So we are, just a group of really enthusiastic people when it comes to the laboratory space, but we also understand the business aspect of it as well as the engineering aspect. So that's kind of who we are.
So you've had to basically build the company in the same format as you and your co-founder. You need people who understand the lab space and are passionate about it, see the need for improvement, but also coming from that software side. Ultimately, it's a SaaS product. So how do you scale a SaaS company to get commercial traction? Um, yeah, super
It's
interesting.
it's very interesting. And I have to say, like, as the CEO, I have gone through so many programs, and it's a constant journey. It's a constant, learning. There is no, staying in one place and believing that, you built a platform and people are going to come to you. That idea of if you build it, they will come.
Hmm.
Not so much. You really need to understand what it takes to, everything from marketing, what is your strategy to get in front of people? What is your strategy to show your return on investment should they become a partner with you? What is the strategy to listen to them and to grow and to really identify what the problems are beyond, just what you've experienced in the place. So it's been a journey, and I've had a lot of help on this journey. Like, none of this has been done, in a silo. We've had so much help on this journey.
Yeah. So what does the product do then, Unika?
Yeah, so our product stands on four pillars, and it's really surrounding how we manage data in the laboratory space. So we have data governance, data analytics, data tracing, and data distribution. And this is really what we surround our thought process around. So when we look at data governance and data analytics, you're usually looking at quality management systems. And everyone understands what a quality management system, it's based on regulations. It's very much prescriptive in terms of what needs to be in there. But then really looking at what exists in the space right now and really making it more detailed for the laboratory, but also providing enterprise level solutions, because we understand that with a lot of mergers and acquisitions right now, we're not living in a space where it's just single sites. We understand that information has to move across a distributed network. So that's really the governance and the analytics part. But as we've spoken with a lot of our partners, we see that some of the areas that are really missing in the laboratory space is data tracing and data distribution. And that creates a lot of issues because we're in a situation where we have a lot of challenges with staffing shortages. We just have challenges with efficiency. And a lot of times, labs are taking up a lot of time. They're really wasting time with mining data, pulling information from different systems, whether we're talking about the LIS system, the EHR, the EHR, the LIS EHR QMS. So being able to really pull that information together is something that is needed and something that we're very focused on, as well as being able to distribute that information where it's needed. Because the information in the laboratory space is not just, sometimes there's a need to collaborate, whether it's, within different sites within an organization or whether it's between organizations. Being able to move information is something that is an issue in the laboratory space. So looking at what the needs are, not just what the quality management needs are, but what you're actually doing with that data is something that we're very focused on. And even in the quality management space, being able to say, okay, I have one piece of information, but that piece of information has to be used for multiple purposes. How do we keep data lean and allow individuals to use this single piece of information for all of the different uses without having to duplicate it? These are the things that we think about, and that's what we're bringing to the industry to help streamline laboratory compliance and operations.
What are you up against then in terms of existing systems and QMS systems in place then? Because you've mentioned about your co-founder dealing with archaic types of systems in government, and that's
Yeah.
obviously understandable to most people. But Why isn't this something that, what already exists, and why isn't it better already?
Yeah, so what already exists, there are a few issues here. A lot of what already exists isn't really catered to the diagnostic space, one. So there's a lot of systems that are catered um to manufacturing, to therapeutics. So that's one thing. The other thing we find is that what we do have that's dedicated to or available for our diagnostic laboratory spaces, these platforms are built in a time where it sort of creates a situation where they're limited by the technology that they used at the time. So we think about some of the older systems that, they just don't allow you to have that flexibility because, they're really constrained by the technology of their time, which is in the 90s. Um, so that's kind of what we're dealing with in the laboratory space. So what it creates is silos. So really, really, we're bringing the depth of what's needed for laboratory operations, but really providing that enterprise level value. So you will find that with enterprise level platforms, they really specifically the ones that the laboratories use right now, what we're hearing from our customers and from all of the conversations that we have is that they're really not built for diagnostic laboratory operations. And that makes sense because a lot of these platforms, they serve multiple industries. And the wider you go, the more difficult it is to really hone in on what a specific, you know, part of the industry or vertical needs.
Interesting. So actually what you're saying is the systems that have been in place for tens of years are now so big and so sort of enterprise driven that they're just not generic, because that's not fair, but um, they're sort of one size fits all across every different type of need. And diagnostics in classic diagnostics form is a part of that isn't being given specificity in the product it uses.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's that problem or the problem of, those that are focused on diagnostics just or, don't have the structure to really create the efficiency that we need right now with, having multiple sites and all of that stuff. So you're right.
Classic diagnostics
I
lacking
know.
lacking the specificity it deserves.
Mhm.
You mentioned your customers. Who tend to be your customers in terms of the types of companies or institutions that you're tending to deal with?
Yeah, so the types of customers that we deal with are usually like customers with distributed models. So don't get me wrong, we do have smaller specialty organizations that just have single sites, but where we really shine are organizations that need to perform operations across state lines, across country lines, and that really helps them bring all the information together by using a platform like ours.
And the push in terms of recently, especially around the rulings that seem to have been put to bed now around sort of LDT management and use, has
Mhm.
that seen this become more of a necessity because so many companies are commercializing through the LDT setup and trying to establish their own labs and potentially grow their sites to increase capacity and efficiency?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So we do see that it's great that the FDA isn't going to rule over LDTs, but for the organizations that are going through the LDT pathway, one thing that we hear is that there are these knowledge gaps. Because I'm actually working with a customer right now who is going through their LDT process, and it's convoluted to say the least. So a lot of times, and this isn't very, it's not just specific to the LDT. A lot of times, the pathways to get from here to there in the diagnostic space, there's just a lot of knowledge gaps, and there's a heavy reliance on subject matter experts who, but at the end of the day, we do see that we have a generational shift happening where older individuals are retiring, younger people are coming in, and that knowledge gap is getting lost. So part of our platform is also to fill that knowledge gap, to say, okay, you want to submit an LDT. This is the framework for doing it. This is step one, step two, step three. And our system really gives you that sort of outline of how it's done. So not just giving you the outline, but giving you the instructions of what needs to be done at every step of the way. So it's one of the ways where we use our frameworks to really help organizations that still want to go down these paths, not just limited to LDTs, but to really understand what the process is and how to have the information that's placed in our system be used. Again, lean data distribution, it's in your quality management system. But if you also need it for LDT, that single iteration of that particular document or whatever it is kind of reflects in the LDT framework that we're running you through in our system as well.
Mm. You mentioned this a couple of times, Unika, the skill gap of a retiring population, but also staff shortages in the lab, and how you guys the system actually helps support that. Could you just give me a little bit more on that?
Absolutely. So what we find is that with our SME subject matter experts who usually take the time to, pull together what the compliance or the quality framework is for laboratories, they usually start from an area of knowledge. Right. They start from an area of building out, the policies and procedures based on their experiences. We take a sort of opposite approach where we start from what the regulations are and we allow you to really build into the regulation. So it's a different starting point. So you sort of have your goal in mind before you even start creating what the policies and procedures and all of that stuff is. And outside of that, what our system also recognizes is that we have the ability to provide templates for a lot of these customizable templates. So when you get into our system, not only are you starting from the standpoint of what the regulation calls for, but we really provide a library of customizable templates, whether we're talking about forms or policies that you could select for to meet that particular requirement, already aligned to the regulations. And we also provide AI to allow you to create from scratch if that's something that you're more inclined to do. So this is sort of one of the ways that we're helping bridge that knowledge gap. But not only are we allowing you to start from the regulatory need, but we're also telling you what the proper evidence of compliance is in a very human, understandable way. So in those ways, pulling all of these together, this is how we're really filling the knowledge gaps for individuals who may not be as well versed on how to accomplish some of these compliance tasks.
Interesting. So you're basically creating efficiencies everywhere that allow companies and labs to benefit from not wasting their staff's time, and therefore stretching staff and stretching the amount of staff they have.
Yes.
It's all about efficiencies.
It's all about efficiency. It's all about understanding that, we really, because of the two things that I've been mentioning, like having staff shortages coupled with inefficiency, it's just a recipe for wasting time. And we need to figure out ways, as developers, as people in the laboratory, to look into the future and say, okay, we can't just keep developing based on what is. We really have to think of what type of transitions do we need to make things more efficient. Because at the end of the day, when we look at our the gaps that we have in terms of staffing, we have what a 25, in some places we have a 25% vacancy rate. And we have thousands of jobs that are going unfilled. So what that means is that the individuals on the front line are working harder, and we need to figure out ways to, to ease that burden, because what that leads to is burnout. That leads to people saying that they don't want to be in the industry anymore. And as a laboratory system, we've done so much work in the past couple of years to really bring the laboratory space to the forefront. And COVID really helped with that, to say, we're here. Without us, the healthcare system as we know it ceases to exist. I don't know how else you could sort of bring that message forward, but the laboratory really is the foundation of our health system. So figuring out systems that could ease the burden of the people on the ground floor, not just the organizations, not just the quality department, is something that we're really focused on.
That's fascinating. In your career, do you think have you seen things change in terms of um how utilized staff are, say over the last 20 years, how burnt out they are, the attractiveness of lab careers at an early age? Have you seen things shift which are causing those challenges?
Well, I think that some of the challenges are, and this isn't something that's happened in the last 5 years. It actually goes beyond that, where you had hospital systems who would reimburse to have these med tech programs, basically
Yeah.
bringing fresh blood into the industry. And, there came a point where they no longer got reimbursed for these programs. So that created a halt on the new recruits coming in. So I have seen that since, all of this advocacy has been going out for the laboratory space, that there are new programs that are coming up, which is wonderful. Are they enough? No, but that's a start. I've seen a lot of leaders just, really go into educate younger excuse me, younger individuals about the laboratory space. So that's been amazing. I myself have done career day at my kids' school and told them about the laboratory space. And it was so interesting because I got a call from their teacher, not a call, an email from their teacher saying that, everyone wanted to understand like blood clots. I don't know how they got on that, but that's what they stuck to during my talk. But I see a lot of advocacy happening. So, yeah.
That's good. Yeah. Now you've mentioned AI because it plays a massive part. Where does AI fit into the system, and how has it played a part in the development of the platform?
Yeah. So one of the ways that we use AI is really to help drive the frameworks that we build out for our users and our partners. So, for instance, some of the things we don't realize is that not we don't realize they may not be very apparent is that when you have different regulatory bodies that are overseeing your specific lab, there are just a lot of checkpoints that you need to just take care of. So for instance, if we look at a state like New York and we look at just the general standards for New York, we have about 170 something general standards that need to be taken care of when we go through our policies and procedures and all of that stuff.
Mm.
And if you're in a lab that's New York, but also CLIA and also, CAP, you have all of these requirements that need to be checked off. And it takes a lot of manpower to go from one to the other to the other. So one of the ways we're using AI is to say, okay, you have this one piece of information. How can we take this one piece of information and across the board tell you how this aligns, right? So it's not just about having to do three different audits at three different times, but really saying for this one information, I could understand how I align across the board. And that saves a significant amount of time, not just with seeing where your gaps are, but really helping you become like just in real time, audit ready across not just one site, but if you have multiple sites, like really taking something that would take probably weeks to, it just takes quite a bit of time, weeks to probably months to do this for multiple agencies across multiple sites. We're really giving you a few clicks to make that happen instantly, to understand where you align, where the gaps are, and where you need to fill in. So that's one of the ways we use AI. We've also included AI in some really basic ways where, with a lot of someone could go onto ChatGPT right now and say, hey, write me a policy on XYZ. So with our system, we understand that in a laboratory space, there are very specific ways that things need to be formatted. You need to have proper references. So we really provide a system that allows you to generate this information for quicker implementation, but in the structured way that you need to meet your requirements with your references and all of that stuff. So that's another way that we used AI. And then we come down to analytics, really understanding the data in your system and how it helps, meet KPIs and stuff like that. So these are just the ways that we've used AI. We've been really, really careful about jumping on board the AI bandwagon and saying, hey, we're an AI platform. We really have conversations with our users and ask them, where do you need help? Where can AI help? If you had a magic wand, what can AI do for you? And based on that input, we think of the very strategic places that AI needs to fit in to create more efficiency.
Right, so you're not positioning yourself as a pure AI play and jumping on that classic, everyone's just saying, oh, we're an AI platform, whatever. You're actually looking at it and going, AI is able to provide incredible efficiencies, again, on that same theme of efficiencies, and pull things together and produce outputs that would have otherwise been incredibly difficult. Certain data points that are used across multiple things are individually and one-to-one and actually need to be across multiple audits, compliance, reports, and everything else. But ultimately, you're utilizing AI to further increase efficiencies of the platform. You're not saying this is an AI platform that produces efficiencies.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's not just AI, it's AI combined with our workflows. I think our workflows are extremely important to how the platform functions and creates efficiency. There is no doubt about it. So combining those two, it just makes sense. In terms of being an AI native platform, like no, no, I think that the workflow, not in the laboratory space, not at this point. There's too many touch points, too much subjectivity. We're not at the point yet. I know everyone is hoping, well, not ever, hopefully, some people are, some people aren't hoping for the day when AI could do it all. But at this point, the human factor is still very much, the majority of the factor taking place in the laboratory. So we've created a system to engage with people and to really allow AI to help in those areas that could create more efficiency. But we're not going to go down on the books, at least not right now, saying that, oh, we're AI native and come to us, AI will solve all your problems.
Yeah. So, and you guys have been around about 4 years, right? So I think sometimes it's almost like when you see a new digital platform that's been created in the last 1 to 2 years, you think it's an AI play, isn't it? Because it's more also really common that the AI surge has come along, and then someone has gone, "I'm going to utilize that to develop a platform and improve something somewhere." Whereas you guys, over the last 4 years, had the idea first, built the digital platform, and then you've bolted on AI to just keep going and getting better for your customers.
Yeah, exactly. Because the laboratory space is so layered. It's complex. It's a lot of moving parts. So the workflows have to be really thought out and understood based on laboratory operations, not just based on, well, we could use AI to, give us information based on one thing or another. There's so many interactions, and part of what we do is to capture those interactions in a digital system. So yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Over the last 4 years, how has the company grown, Unika, and the sort of milestones that you've achieved along the journey so far?
Got it. So I know you've been saying 4 years, but it's actually been 3.
Oh, has it?
Just a
I do
reminder.
apologize.
No, no, that's fine, that's fine. So we've grown in terms of the types of laboratory spaces that we serve. So that's been exciting. Part of our goal was to create a system that was agnostic and flexible. So that's been really good to see proven out. Being able to introduce AI again has been really, really, a real good proof point for us because our customers, it's what they want, and they're telling us that it's helping. But one of the things that we're really proud of is again the compliance frameworks that we spoke about because what we want to make sure is that we are taking care, that we are addressing a wider range of operational aspects of the laboratory. So not just, the quality management system, again, with all that I started with, even if we're just thinking of the governance of it, well, you have to submit applications to get different licenses. You have to, there are other things that need to happen in a laboratory from an operational standpoint beyond just having a quality management system. So being able to create a system that gives workflows for these activities that are not directly quality management activities, but they are necessary to run operations in a laboratory. I think this is something that we're super proud of because it really gives you the step by step instructions to get some of these more operational based activities accomplished. So that's super exciting.
Hmm. And what does the future look like for the Proficient Lab?
What does the future look like? Well, I mean, we do want to do a lot more with AI. Again, we want to make sure that, as technology increases, that we are moving along with that. We want to focus a lot on our data tracing and data distribution. That is very important to us because, again, I've spoken with institutions that, they utilize 10 to 12 full-time employees to pull data together from different systems. That just doesn't make any well, it makes sense because you don't have a choice, but really
Yeah.
understanding, really providing solutions to pull this information together and then really providing solutions for secure data transfer. This is very exciting for us because the more conversations we have, the more we understand that with all of the systems that are used in the laboratory, that connection between information and really tracing where that information goes from system to system is a pain point. So we're excited for that. Um, yeah, and to really just keep growing, to really just keep scaling is something that, that's what the future looks like for us.
Mm. And what's your outlook on the diagnostics market as we turn into 2026?
Ooh, that is an interesting one. So, I mean, we spoke about staffing shortages. That's one thing. We spoke about, the vacancy rates. We're going to have to work through that. But it's interesting because, right now we're talking about the cuts to reimbursements. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic because there's going to be cuts, which means that there's going to be less of an ability to just go ahead and purchase the solutions that are going to create efficiency. But without creating efficiency, you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. So it's really interesting to see how companies like ours are going to sort of evolve to make sure that that ROI could be realized and that the value is there. And that's something that we work on regularly. And I think even with the policymakers that we have right now, the administration that we have right now, like they're working to decrease the regulatory burden. So that's something that this administration's super into. Like they want
Yeah.
to, I think the what I've heard is that for every new regulation that needs to be introduced, 10 have to be removed. So it's gonna be, yeah, I've heard that from multiple sources. That is what the administration wants. And I actually had a meeting with someone at HHS, Health and Human Services, speaking about just that. How can technology like ours help reduce the regulatory burden? So I think there is an appetite by the administration to do that, but it's really going to be interesting because there are a lot of competing factors, like the ones that I mentioned. So I think companies like myself just really need to stay on top of what's happening and really understand, where things are going so that, we don't get lost in the noise and that we understand a clear path to utilization and what that means for companies and their bottom lines.
Are you optimistic?
I am optimistic. I think it's inevitable. The thing is we're we are between a rock and a hard place, but compliance when it comes to like when we talk about just basically a compliance, it was introduced because, we saw deaths, we saw lots of
Yeah.
errors happening. So it's a non-negotiable. So I am confident that, you know, with technology, there is the need for systems like, like quality systems. It's not going to go away. So it's just a matter of figuring out the right path.
Yeah. I think it's really exciting to hear about digital platforms and AI plays that are proving value immediately and efficiencies, and you can really sort of feel and see and measure the improvements that are being made in the diagnostics field, because I think that there's there's a lot that can be improved. And there's the sort of fluff around AI of just like how it's going to be actually implemented and where we're going to see the most benefits. But actually in diagnostics and precision medicine and stuff like that, actually AI could this could be its most valuable industry, that we could see
Mhm.
incredible efficiencies and incredible outcomes with the appropriate use of AI. So
Absolutely.
it's great to hear about your digital platform and where it comes from, and why you decided to start from your own sort of user experience. and then also the bolt on of AI logically, rather than it just being a sort of broad AI play, but actually
Yeah.
going, do you know what, actually AI could help us here to, improve this piece of our system and for our customers, their day-to-day operations. So Unika, it's fascinating. I love to hear about it, and hope to see more and more of your success next year and beyond, and the scale that you're aiming for.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I am very excited about next year. We have lots of, support around us. Excited about next year. Excited about what we're doing. So, yeah, this is the time.
Thank you so much, Unika. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.